Hi guys, it's Breacher18 where I'm breaching board games one game at a time, and today we are going to look at the King's Abbey. So let's not waste any more time, let's get on with it. This is the setup for the King's Abbey. One of the key things is this player aid, and this just basically sets out every stage of a player's turn, and it's really handy because, you know, sometimes it can be quite easy to forget things. So the first thing to do is roll the dice. So we'd have these dice and everybody else would have one dice in the pool, so you don't get the full amount of dice. So you do this, so you'd roll your dice and then that's it, that first bit's done. The next point is draw event card. So you have an event deck here, which is made up of several different cards, and there should be 7 in total, as the game consists of 7 rounds. Each turn you'll draw one, so this one is a Vikings card, and what you'd have to do then is you'd roll the Viking dice. So as you can see on that card, it has a different set out depending on how many players are playing the game. So we'd roll 2 of the Viking dice, and we've got a 6 and a 2. So the 6 would go first and then the 2 would go underneath that. Then it's up to the first player to place the first dice, which has to be a 6. And then if they want to, they can play a second dice and gain more prestige points this way. If they don't want to, it goes on to the second player and they have to match the 2 dice. So that's the Vikings. So then after we've drawn the event card, we go on to the Abbey and Crusade dice placement, which is this, basically set up here. And there's various things we can do, and it's all depicted on this board. So these are your little peasants, and you have a pool of peasants here, and they get played to the back row of the pews here. If you want to do that, it's 1, 2 or 3 on the die, and then you just assign that die there like that, and then you get to place one of these on a pew. You start off with 1, but obviously you'll need to add to this because you'll need to get them into various buildings. This is your clergy training marker, and you will start off basically not on this chart, and if you place a 4, 5 or a 6, you can move 1 space and you'd go from bottom to top and right to left. When you get to the top of that, you gain special abilities that allow you to do certain things. So this one allows you to move a peasant twice during the peasant move phase. This one gets you an extra point of defense. And so on and so forth. There's different abilities for each one, and then if you get to these levels, they also gain you prestige points as well. Other things you can do, you can place a dice on your Crusade card, which means you put one of your peasants that are in this area on the pews here, you'd place that on this card here to signal that you've sent someone on the Crusade, and then you assign 4 dice of a matching number. So you may not be able to do this on your first go, and the dice stay there until you've completed that Crusade. But you can get your other players to help you, but you can only have a maximum of 1 other player helping you. That's why there's 2 spots, because they'd have to put 1 of their little peasants on there. And then once you have completed that, you take the benefits at the bottom, so this is a tool bag and a stone, and then you turn that over, and these points are added at the end of the game. So although you're collecting points over the various rounds, you don't know what your actual score is until right at the end, which just makes it a bit more interesting. So they're Crusades, and that is pretty much the Abbey and Crusade dice placement. The next phase on here is purchase building cards. So we go up to this board here, and as you can see, it's depicted with 4 coins, 3 coins, 2 coins and 1. Pretty self-explanatory. If you want one from here, you'd pay 1 coin into the general supply, 2, 3 and 4. And then once you've purchased them, they go into your player area, and you gain the benefit that's noted down here straight away. So for example, this one, this bakery one, would be 4 coins there. When you build it, which means you're basically putting it in there, when you pay the resource cost, you gain the prestige. When you put a peasant on it, you then get the ability here. So it's important that you do you basically take the benefits at the right times. You don't just get them straight away. And that's purchasing building cards. The next part is resource and initiative selection. As you can see on the board, there's spaces here with different resources. So you would want to place some of your dice on here. And how it works is you can place a maximum of 2 dice depending on if these bonus spaces are free. So in a 2 to 3 player game, only 1 space is free. In a 4 to 5 player game, both of those spaces are free. You can only place 2 dice on the first time. You can't place 1 and then come back and place the other. And if you're only placing 1 die, you can't block the bonus from somebody else. That's quite important. So I've placed those 2 dice there, and then how it works is very much like Stone Age. You divide this total number here by this, and then that's how many resources you'd get from there. Other things to be mindful of is these 2 things that you start off with, and that's a cart and a tool bag. The tool bag can be used once per round and gets refreshed at the end of the reset. Once you've used a cart, they're then discarded. But you can use as many of these as you want if you have them in your personal supply. A tool bag allows you to increase one of the die by 1 pip, but you obviously set to a maximum of 6, and the cart allows you to take 1 extra resource of that. So say, for example, I would get 4 resources, and I'd obviously have 1 remaining, but I'd get 4 resources. If I wanted, I could use a tool bag, so I'd then have 10, and then I'd get 5 resources there. And then if I use my wheelbarrow or your cart, I'd be able to take another resource, but once I've used that, that's discarded. That's just used for that turn and it would get reset. So they're them. Also, you can trade at any time. You have 2 trade tokens. Once you've used both of your trade tokens, you can no longer trade during that round, and these would get reset for the next round as well. Trading is very simple. At the bottom of your player board, it tells you how much everything is for trade. So sand is 5, stone is 4, wheat is 3, wood is 2, and gold is 1. So you can trade. That's another thing you can do. You can place the dice here for the initiative. It doesn't matter what number it is, just any. And then you take the top tile of the initiative, and that gives me +3 wood. And then at the end of that, you'd gain the first player initiative marker there. And that is your resource and initiative selection. The next one is move peasants. Right, so moving peasants, when you first start off, you can move 1 peasant 1 space. The idea is you're moving them up to get them into one of these baptistry spaces. Once you get them into one of these baptistry spaces, you can then move them into buildings. When you move them into buildings, it triggers that building's ability. That's why it's quite important to do this clergy training marker, because as soon as you get to the top of the postulant phase, you get +2 moves. Right, so the next part, build. Building is very simple. I'll just take one of these to show you. These are one of the 6 cards that each player will get at the beginning of the game. And the resource cost at the top is what you need to pay to build it. So if I was to build this, I'd have to pay 6 gold, 3 wood, 1 wheat, 1 stone and 1 sand. So say if I built that, I paid my resources, I would then gain the 10 prestige points from that. And also, when this is then activated being it has one of these little peasants on it, I would gain 1 defense with a trained archer. So like I said, trained archer is just a peasant that hasn't been baptized, but you pay 5 gold to update it to a trained archer, and then that would go on there. Once we've built, we do the gardening, farming and feeding. So gardening is quite specific. Some of the cards allow you to do gardening. So at the moment there's one here that says garden. Gain 1 grain for every 3 grain during gardening. That's what it's referring to. So not all of these things you will be doing because you might not have the buildings to do them. Farming, again, you get farms and you'll get these things called barns, and you'll get sheep or cattle on them, and at the end of each round, when you're in that phase, you'll gain 1 of these for that farm. And then feeding, you have to feed your peasants, and it's done 1 to 4 peasant is 1 grain, 5 to 8 peasants is 2 grains, 9 plus peasants is 3 grains. This doesn't include any peasants that are on your crusades, so you don't have to take that into consideration. Once you've done that, you go on to combat darkness and moving the darkness, and all that is the darkness track starts at 3. You need to match that number or be greater, and that's on this track here. So you start off on 1. So if I want to combat darkness, I need to be on 3. So you either earn points of defense by things like building an altar, which you can do the build phase, which is 4 coins and 2 wood, and you'd place that on there. That would gain you a point, so you'd move that up. Or when you're placing your dice in the Abbey, you can do it like this. So you can put 1 down there, 1 down there. So that gives you 4 darkness, but that's only temporary darkness. So when everything resets, you get them back. Every level of darkness that is not met, you will lose a peasant and 2 prestige points. And when I say you lose a peasant, it'll go back to the box. Once you've done the combat of darkness, then you just move the darkness once up there. You collect income for every peasant that is in a pew or a building or tower. You wouldn't get any for on your crusade cards, so that's just 1 coin for each of them. And once you've done that, the 11th phase is collect crusade reward, purchase new crusades. Once you've completed the crusade, you can purchase another one, which is just a top card for 1 gold. You can only have a maximum of 2 crusades running at any time. You can't have more than that, but you can only purchase 1 crusade at a time. After you've done that, it's 12 reset. So everything would be reset, all of your dice would be returned. So you'd get the 2 dice that you'd put on the Vikings card there. That card would then be discarded. Your trade tokens would be reset. Your tool bag would be reset. And you get all your dice back, apart from any that are on uncompleted crusades. The building market, the 2 at the bottom would be discarded. Everything moves down and then replenished from the top. And that is a brief overview of a turn in the King's Abbey. So, the King's Abbey, what did I think to it? I really liked it. It's got a lot of mechanics in it. It's got worker placement, which is my favourite mechanic. So I was, that's originally why I backed it on Kickstarter, because of that. And it's got the dice placement, it's got the resource management. There's a lot of similarities between games like Stone Age Alien Frontiers, Kingsburg, the fact that you're having to check whether you defeat the darkness, you get the cards out every turn in the event deck, whether you get it's a plentiful year or there's a disaster or you face the Vikings. There's just so much in it, and when you see the player aid and you see how many different stages there are per round, it's actually quite daunting, but some of these phases go so fast that it doesn't seem like it's stretched out, so it flows really, really smoothly. And I just really enjoyed the game. There's so much to think about, and the whole theme and the feel of it really did genuinely feel like you was looking after your parishioners and, you know, building your abbey and improving that. And the end scoring, I enjoyed that, the fact that some of the information was still hidden right until the end. And then farm animals, they would gain you extra prestige points. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the prestige points. You know, the most points wins. But the game itself, I just really enjoyed it. There's always something to think about. I never felt like on turns that there wasn't anything to do, or, you know, I didn't want to utilise my turns. I had to constantly think about everything. So it really keeps you on your toes in that respect. It takes some really great elements and puts it together, and you'd think it'd be a bit of a sort of like a hot mess and it'd be clunky, but I really didn't feel like it was clunky at all. I mean, it went really, really smoothly, and it was just a really enjoyable game. And I know a few people have commented on the artwork. I actually quite liked it. I thought it had a Pillars of the Earth feel to it with the arch, and then it goes into the abbey. I really liked it. I thought, okay, it's not the brightest of things, but I think it's fitting of the theme, and that's the King's Abbey.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.